What's going on, fam? It's Papa Swolio with swolenormousx.com, and I want to break down this Ignite superset between Sumo Goblet squats and single leg Romanian deadlift. So right here, this is the Sumo Goblet squat. So I'm using a single dumbbell, and you can do this with a kettlebell. You can hold two dumbbells. You can literally just grab a barbell, and then it becomes more or less a front squat. But I'm just doing this because I wanted to do something that people can do at home more conveniently. I've had a lot of people ask me about what to do when they don't have a squat rack. What can they do for free weights when the squat rack is not available? And dumbbells are fantastic. Don't write dumbbells off for legs. Too many people just look for the bar and it's all about squats, all about deadlifts, and that's great. But there's amazing stuff you can do with a simple pair of dumbbells. So this is the stabilization component of the Ignite superset. And you can see how I am, yes, wearing my barefoot shoes. I do everything barefoot. This is I lost balance there too. This is a single leg Romanian deadlift. And this is so commonly done improperly. I even prefer to do one dumbbell over two, because when your floating leg and your arm on the same side is the weighted arm, you are helping the body stay internally rotated. And what I mean by that is you're going to challenge that gluteus medius on the stance leg a lot more and get a lot more mobility in that hip, and a great stretch on the outer part of the lower back on that side. The TFL, all the muscles on the side of the hip, the glute medius is going to stretch, it's going to lengthen, and it's going to be really dynamically stabilizing, because when that weight is in the floating legs side, as you can see, a lot of people do it on the same side. That's why I'm breaking this down. It keeps your chest more parallel with the ground, facing the ground, so you don't open up to the side. And this really is amazing for the outer part of that stance leg, the outer part of the hamstring, the gluteus medius on that stance leg side. And of course, my chin is tucked in. I'm looking down at the ground, and I'm essentially pushing away with that back leg like there's an invisible wall looking for length. And this makes it an amazing stabilization, but a strength exercise and a mobility exercise at the same time. I love doing this style of training because when I'm done, it's not the same kind of like a classic pump when you're just trying to lift weights and get big. When you do stabilization exercise and you do a lot of range of motion, you just leave the gym feeling good. I never leave feeling absolutely destroyed. I just feel stretched almost. So it's a great feeling. It's a great shift in my training. So obviously I went through some more goblet squats. Nothing really interesting there in my opinion. I'll get back to them when I show you for a little bit longer so I can break it down a little bit more depth. But here's another great angle for the single leg Romanian deadlift. And that floating leg is just pushing an invisible wall. I am looking for length with my heel, and the weight in my floating leg's hand, see the right leg is off floating, and the right arm, scapula pulled back and down, chin tucked in. And yeah, I'm not the most flexible person in my hips, and my stance leg is nice and soft. My knee is unlocked. It's not straight and it's not bending, but it's driving back. So my center of gravity, my body is nice and aligned. It's safe, secure. My stomach is drawn in. My glutes are activating. And it just feels like a great stretch. And notice how, because the weight is in my right hand, my chest isn't opening towards us. And that's the big kicker. When you have it in your stance leg's hand, your chest will open up to the side and you lose all that stretch in the IT band. You lose all that range of motion and that lengthening and that dynamic stabilization of the gluteus medius as well on the stance leg when you open up. And here's another great example. So now the stance leg is the right leg, and you can see how my chest stays nice and flat because of the weight. It pulls me in and it forces me to drive my hip to the right to counterbalance. So I'm not rotating out to the left away from the camera. I'm staying nice and flat. And you can see the muscles on the side of my leg, the TFL and the iliotibial band on the side of the thigh. Oh, look, I even raised, my shorts were getting caught. And they're stabilizing a lot. They're really pushing out to the right because I'm keeping my chest down, internally rotated, so my leg has to go towards the camera to counterbalance. And the human body's fascinating, isn't it? All right, so back to the goblet squats. Now, the key point here, looking at the camera, making sure I'm aligned, my knees are over my second toe. So my knees are not collapsing, and a lot of people turn their toes out a lot wider than they should because they think they're more flexible than they are, and they might not be seeing what they're supposed to see in the mirror because most mirrors are off the ground, so they don't get broken in gyms. And that's just a fun fact, but their knees might be collapsing and caving in and buckling in towards the center. And that is not good. That is not good. And that causes a lot of pressure on the knees. So you only want to separate your feet and turn your toes out as wide as you can keep your knees over your toes. You want to keep driving your knees out. So even when you're in the bottom position, you still want to be driving your knees out wide and twisting your thighs, kind of like externally rotating your thighs as you drive up like a corkscrew. And that has a lot to do with the knee action and the screw home mechanism of the knee, but that's another video. And I just, boom, drop it right down. So I'm doing left leg for the RDLs, then I'm doing right leg or vice versa, and then going right into goblet squats. And this video is not accurate to how many sets or how many reps I'm doing each leg. I just wanted to save you the straight dead time of me standing around between sets for a few moments, switching the weights, picking up heavier weights, but I'm progressively going heavier. Now, my goal here in this exercise was to focus on the stretch, focus on doing the execution of the movement to the best of my ability. So it wasn't to see if I could do 30s, see if I can grab 40s. The weight that I did start to go heavier on was for the goblet squat, the Sumo Goblet squat. And that I did go up. I didn't even go super heavy on that because I was doing a superset. And like I said, the goal of this session was more mobility and more for a stretch and more just to loosen up. I've been feeling a little bit stiff lately because I've been in front of the computer more than normal. Just getting some extra stuff done. So I've been feeling a little bit more rigid. I want to open up the body. So this just seemed like a great pairing, and it turned out to be fantastic. Yeah, you can see I'm grabbing a little bit heavier than I had before. Those are, I don't know if those are 90s or 95s. I don't know what those are, 85s. I can't tell from here. But, you know, knees are going wide. My heels aren't actually that far apart. A lot of people go really wide with the stance. So when you're doing a sumo, they go super wide with the stance, but the hips or their hips aren't stable enough. And as a result of that, their knees start collapsing in. And that's not something that you want from a goblet squat or from a sumo squat. You want to have a secure base, right? You're a pyramid. You're building that strength. And I'm going to replay this clip a little bit more because we're talking about the goblet squat. You want to have your knees in line with your second toe. So if you need to bring your heels closer together, that's fine. If you need to turn your toes in a little bit more, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with turning your toes out so long as you have the mobility to go through the movement safely. It's when people have hips that are too tight from sitting on their butts too long, bad knees from all the misuse throughout the years, tight ankles, and then you're trying to do these sumo wide. These are natural movements for the human body, but they're also very challenging. They're very challenging mobility-wise when you are usually sitting in a car with your knees closer together, or your legs are crossed, or you're sleeping, or you're sitting at a desk at work. You're very rarely mobile. So, you know, it's very challenging for the body. So bring your feet closer together if you need to. This workout and this pairing of exercise is not designed for heavy weight. So take your time, execute properly, always err on the side of caution, and enjoy this Ignite superset.